Welcome to Adulting Decrypted. We are your hosts.
I'm Gene, and I'm starting my first year of college.
I'm Ashton. I'm a music performer, composer, and educator.
I'm Gideon, a high school senior.
I'm Roscoe, the dad. Those are my three sons, and this is Adulting Decrypted, where we discuss ways to become adults and the things we need to know to be successful at life. Hey guys, today's topic's a little bit heavy. It's something that has been rising in the news. We're hearing more about it. Caught my attention on KSL a couple months ago, and I was trying to figure out KSL here locally is our newspaper, digital newspaper right now for me. It's also a television station. I came across an article, and it's called Sextortion. And it was in Idaho Falls, young man, 17 years old. He got a message from what he thought was a young woman, got him to take some pictures, inappropriate pictures, some pictures. The next thing you know, they started exploiting him, and by 3 died by suicide. So, it got me thinking, about it then, and we got busy with winter and Christmas and everything that was going on, and so I'd put it off. And then I was listening to Crime Junkie, and they talk about two stories of Asia Anderson and Walker Montgomery. Spoke about the rising threat of sextortion. So I guess the question is, young man, have you guys heard of this?
I have, actually. While I was on the mission, there was actually a couple different courses that they had us go through. And they talked about these different ways of people getting exploited, like phishing, other types of scams, and sextortion was one of those. And so it had us go through that course and be like, hey, how do you recognize it? What to do when you notice it? And like when you should, the word they like to use was eject, like from an airplane that's crashing.
Perfect. Thank you, Gene. That's great. That'll give us a basis for the conversation because I hadn't heard much about it. Ashton or Gideon?
Well, I had heard about it as a means for financial gain for scammers. It's just another scam, but instead of preying on an elderly individual who doesn't understand the reality of tech support, it preys on young teenage boys who lack a support net, a comfortable place to go. And so they use it as a way to gain financial means from it. They'll say, hey, pay me this much and I'll move on. But it just becomes and then the cycle, because if you pay him, then you're willing to pay him again. So it's just a cruel way for some people to make money.
Yeah, I've heard about it briefly as well. Ashton explained it.
Perfect. The only thing, Ashton, that might be a little bit different on there is you mentioned that they didn't have the support system. I think some of these young people do. They just didn't know how to use it, if that makes any sense, because it is pretty embarrassing, I'd imagine. The first case that I was listening to is of Asia Anderson, and talk through how she would been put in this cycle from a boy that she liked. She took a picture for and sent it, to him, and then he swore he wouldn't share it with anybody. She gets this message and it says, hey, I want some more sexual images. And she's like, well, how do I know that you even have them? And he described her room. So he must have them. And then he would convince her to do more and more inappropriate, or adult material. And that's what he did. And he was doing it after they caught him. They found out he was doing it 18 hours a day and really kind of making he wasn't even making a living, ironically, Ashton. It was just for his own personal control or power over somebody else. Walker Montgomery, his story was more like the first one that I shared, where he died by suicide. And we have an episode about that. Please go listen to it if you need help. If you find yourself in this situation, reach out to help. So that's the first part of it, and then we'll go into some of the other stuff. Is there anything else you guys wanted to share real quick?
No, I think it'll be an important topic to cover, because especially since it is this demographic of those who are in the adulting phase, those who are still developing and finding out who they are.
Yep. For their parents and then also for their siblings, right? If Gideon didn't feel comfortable reaching out to me, I'd hope that he'd feel comfortable reaching out to Ashton or to Gene and saying, hey, I've got myself in trouble here. I need some help. Does that make sense? So sometimes it's not even for the listener. It's for the listener's friend. And so that's why we're willing to sit down and do these harder topics. So first off, it's kind of recognizing the signs of sextortion. Gene, I liked your analogy of eject yourself from the situation. So if you're fine with us leveraging that concept, the first one is unsolicited requests. So be aware of unsolicited messages from friend requests, right? Especially from unknown or suspicious accounts. Sextortion often begins with seemingly harmless interactions that escalate over time. If this sounds like I'm reading direct, it is because I am. It's from something that I put together to go over the topics so that I didn't miss points, and kind of took some stuff from Crime Junkies website, so I appreciate their information as well as some other stuff. So if it sounds like it's coming from there, because it is, it's not something that's I'm not the expert on. I just heard about it, right? And I'd feel like I would be a coward if I didn't talk about it. So. Unsolicited requests. Does that ever happen? How do you guys see those? I mean, I'm not a tech suave user, right? So I don't know what that looks like.
Unsolicited requests. Sometimes I've had a couple where you'll get like friend requests from a very scandalous looking female who has the name of a man, and it'll be like, hey, I'm so glad we could finally connect. And you're like, what is that? And you can normally figure out pretty quick that it's just something shady and weird. Friend requests, like Instagram and stuff, people follow, and it doesn't really make that much of a difference other than to your like follower count. So like, but something like Facebook, where it gives people a little bit more direct contact to you and a lot of your information, it's just wise to be a little bit more selective than just approving everyone. That's what I've seen a lot. I know it's not technically sextortion, but Adulting Decrypted, we've had to change a lot of policies on both like our chats and our Facebook page, because you'll just get people who are trying to make money or share gross things, and you're just like, okay, stop. So, I mean, a lot of it's just them throwing whatever they can at the wall just to see what sticks. That's what I have seen.
Okay.
But I also know of a situation that happened at the high school that I graduated from, where the coach at the school for a little bit and used his access to students to solicit photos and stuff from them just as a form of blackmail. And, so like it can come from online, it can come from someone you know. It's just important to stay in areas that you're comfortable and use extra caution.
Thank you, Ashton.
Just be wise.
Yeah, and thanks for that, I guess, relevant or timely story that it happens in other means, not just online. Okay, so from the other thing we had to take down that Ashton was talking about is there's some posts on our Facebook group that were not appropriate, and thank you, Braden, for reaching out to us and letting us know when that happened and jumping right in. We appreciate you and appreciate what you did there to bring it to our attention. I use WhatsApp. I just got it for this trip, and obviously I'm getting some messages from people. Hey, how you been? We haven't talked forever. I don't know who these people are, so the first thing I'm going to do is just ignore it. When I'm texting people, especially I'm in a position where I text a variety of people that I don't know, I'll put my name. Hey, this is Roscoe Allen. If they need to know where it's coming from or who we are, I'll let them know the context, like from the church or as your youth, advisor, whatever. This is what I'm messaging you about, and I'll copy their parents at times as well. So unsolicited, just blanket, be aware of it, be cautious. Thanks. The next one, the sextortion, Ashton, you hit on this briefly, is the coercion, the tactics that they're using. So I like that you already got us down that path a little bit. So talked him in first to give him something that seemed innocent, and then use that to leverage and get some more information from people. If somebody's really pressuring you to take intimate pictures or explicit content, they're pushing you down that path, it's another red flag. You're in an age where you're going to be using, in Utah Mutual to date, right? I'd assume, Gene, that you're going to start using that. I know, Ashton, you've used it. You're going to use other accounts. I mean, this is the digital age. You don't go out necessarily, walk down the street and meet people and visit with them and go through that whole interaction. There's a lot more couples that meet digitally now. And so that's going to happen. So you might get some unsolicited messages, but it doesn't mean that they're always negative, right? So you got to But if they start pushing you down a path, then that'd be a red flag. Any other thoughts on that? Where you might need to be aware of that? Being coerced, or does that make sense to the team?
Well, the good thing with communicating online, of being able to easily connect, is also the good thing about being online is it's pretty easy to disconnect, especially if you haven't succumbed to the pressure already. You can just delete people and things. Like, it's better just to get out of an uncomfortable, pressuring situation. So, like, don't be afraid. Just delete them. Like, it doesn't matter. It's not going to change anything.
Perfect. And do it early is what you're saying.
Yeah.
And then if they say they have compromising pictures because you send them to a friend, what would you do in that scenario? They're saying, "Oh, I got these pictures from somebody of you."
I would be like, I don't know how, but good job, I guess. For me, I don't feel at risk to this because
Perfect.
It's never been something for me that's like been an issue.
Yeah, that's fair. But maybe guidance to a listener, a younger listener.
Sure. Well, the biggest thing I would say is tell an adult and tell a government authority.
Perfect.
The other thing too is modern age of AI makes this conversation more interesting as well.
Oh, and more scary a little bit, doesn't it?
Because image generation changes a lot of things. So there's been some stuff about that.
Went to the movie theater and they showed a little clip of that before, of saying, "Hey, Mom, Dad, be careful what you share online. They can manipulate it." And they showed the girl that was really a guy. They kind of showed how they can manipulate an image. And so I think
easy.
To your point, Ashton, you could even question it more, right? If somebody was saying, "Oh, I got these pictures of you," it might look real, might look like your face or even who you are. But question everything and first off bring it up. So thank you. The other way it comes in is emotional manipulation, coercing you to do this, but now emotional manipulation. They might say, "Hey, I'm with the FBI," or "I'm with different agencies." If they're trying to build a close relationship too quickly by saying they're somebody of authority, that's a reason to run, right? And that's a reason to run, even to Ashton's point, as if you have a teacher that's getting too close, or an adult in the we're all adults except Gideon, and he's pretty close, but somebody that's not age appropriate. If I'm trying to develop a relationship with somebody who's 18 or 19, that's of the opposite sex or even the same sex, and it's trying to come quick, that would be one where you'd go, "Wait, hold off, what's going on here? Are you really worried about my well-being?"
Say to someone who feels targeted is a crime, like
Absolutely.
for you to be blackmailed. So report it to people and authorities. Like, the person that's doing this to you they're doing something illegally, and so they can be punished by the law. Where you're being threatened, but don't just not do anything about it. Especially if it's legit, just let's put them in jail.
Thank you, Ashton. I love that. And I think that's really under the reporting of the incident, right? Don't stay silent. And then instead of deleting stuff like this young man did in Idaho, keep all evidence, of them coming at you. So we'll go in that in a second. So stay safe online. Guard personal information. Right? You guys know this now. You guys are probably better at it than my generation is, right? Because Ashton's point of the AI generation and some of the stuff they can get at is pretty scary. So just be careful what personal information you put out online. Use privacy settings. This is what Ashton was referring to with our Adulting Decrypted Insider page. Ashton went and was able to limit some of people's ability to post and what they could post. And hopefully that hasn't affected you, listener, and how you interact with this. If you are having issues, message us direct. We are expecting unsolicited messages. Say, "Hey, I'm a listener of your podcast. I want to connect with you guys." It's a whole different feeling. I've connected with 3 or 4 people, and it's been great. So it's good to get to know people. To Ashton's point, it's great to have you on board. And so that's totally kosher. Reach out to us and let us help you out.
The other thing I've seen as a form of scammers or blackmailers using as a foot in the door is using a common interest or influencer, if you will. So they'll say, "Oh, hey, I'm a friend of this popular person that you follow," or "I work for this popular person that I follow." It's okay to question the credential on that one too.
You took the words right out of my mouth.
There you go.
The third one was be skeptical, right? Be skeptical of all those interactions. Mr. Beast is probably not reaching out to you directly, and
no, if he did though, I would talk to that man for sure.
But
Give me some
you
money.
would be skeptical on who he is.
That's true.
Would be awesome, right? If he did it to us as a group, we'd be like, yeah, let's chat. But we would be skeptical. We wouldn't come say, okay, yeah, and here's my social security number, here's my bank account, here's.
Hey,
He's not going to ask that. It's just like America First or Amex. If they reach out to you, they're not going to say, hey, can you give me your PIN to your bank account?
Yeah, well, I mean, Mr. Beast, it's funny you mention him because he gets that happening to him a lot. Like, there was one that went super viral not too long ago where some person told a dad and his kid in a parking lot that he worked for Mr. Beast, and if they let him borrow his car, like, he'd bring them $10,000 or whatever. They just didn't see their car again. And
that's funny.
Yeah.
I didn't even know. I mean, it's not funny.
No,
That's
it's not
sad
funny.
that it happened. But it's funny that I use that example and that he's been the victim. Trust your instincts, right? If something feels off, Gideon, I know that you've had some interactions on Insta where somebody had asked you something and you're like, yeah, that's not my cup of tea.
To an extent. So, some on the sextortion side, just like weird group chats that you get put in, like where Ashton said, if it's like a scandalous picture and there's 10 other random people in this group chat, and it's just like some sketchy link that they post in this group chat, you're like, this is just weird, and so you block it. But there's also been some that like people's accounts can get hacked, like friends' accounts can get hacked, and that's happened, and they've asked for money in that sense. So it's like, why in the world would this person be asking me for $200, right?
Hello. If you're listening to this right now, that means you're currently listening to an episode of Adulting Decrypted. And let me just say thank you. My name's Ashton, one of the hosts of Adulting Decrypted, and I wanted to steal a quick second of your time to do a shameless little plug. If you've listened to our podcast for any sort of time, you know that we talk about a bunch of different stuff all about adulting. Because our goal is to help individuals in this task we call adulting. Now, we have just revamped the way that we do this. If you go to adultingdecrypted.com, you can see all of our episodes sorted out by category. We've sorted it into financial, practical, emotional, social, and things just for fun. So, if any of those categories are of particular interest to you right now, you can go onto the website, look through there, and see all of our episodes that correlate with that specific thing. This website's completely free to use. It's just another tool for our listeners to find things that are more important to them now. So, for example, if I was looking at it, I'd scroll through and say, hey, you know what? I want to see what the Adulting Decrypted crew has talked about socially. Well, one of our first episodes, Season 1, Episode 3, How Do I Talk to People? That's where we talked about all about how to talk to people. So if that's something you want right now, you can go find that right now. Also in this one, Season 3, Episode 15, The Power of a Humble Mediator, where we talked to one of my old bosses about his business as a mayor, also as a small theater owner. Some really cool stuff. So, if you're looking for a better way to organize through all your self-help podcasts, try adultingdecrypted.com and enjoy the rest of the episode.
And a good friend of mom, she texted and didn't realize that she had switched phone numbers, and they told her they were in an emergency and needed cash. And mom's like, yeah, there's 2 or 3 ways I need to validate that before, because it first doesn't sound like the person, and then second off, so always check.
Yeah, for sure.
And the other thing is somebody did reach out to you that you didn't know, and they were very polite. They just said, hey, Gideon, this is who I am. Are you interested in doing something? And you're like, no, thanks. So. And then you, and you have met new friends through Insta that you actually went to school with that you hadn't interacted with.
Be cautiously skeptical, but be willing to be skeptical, but not just like immediately like, oh, don't recognize them. Because, I mean, we need to do the same thing when we're talking to anybody at the store. You still wouldn't go up to like the cashier and be like, oh yeah, here, swipe my card. Oh yeah, and the pin for this is this, this, and this, and that. Oh, if you want my social security card, I mean, here it is. I mean, I just carry that on me. You're still going to be skeptical with the cashier. If they're like, oh, hey, what's your pin? Oh yeah, I can just put that in. Then if they're okay about it, then
they're like, thank you. Any other thoughts on just kind of, really this is staying safe? We talked about the signs of sextortion. We talked about staying safe online. And Gene and Ashton, I love that you brought it even to the real world. Not just digital, aware of it in general.
Thing I will say is with those random accounts that you get that look like your friends are asking you for another friend request, I always like to check how many mutual friends they have. Because generally, if it's a scam account, they'll have maybe one or two, especially if it's someone that you really like, But if they have 30, 40, 50, it's probably legit because it's been around for a while. So that's another thing that I check.
Yeah. And just to add one more thing, I didn't know if you were Thursday points down.
Go for it.
But if you do become a victim of sextortion, remember it is never your fault.
Oh, Gene, I love that. Thank you so much.
Because it's never the victim's fault that the aggressor came against you, that they picked you. It's never your fault if you get like super stressed and you don't know what to do in the situation and you fall under the pressure. Just remember that you can always get out.
I love it. And so here's reporting the incident. First, don't stay silent. If you experience it, you witness it, you hear a friend about it, it's crucial to report it. Report the platform where the incident occurred. We reached out to Facebook, said, hey, pull this off. This isn't from us. And they had James on this show. And when Facebook first got started, we thought we were funny. He said something. He's like, don't pick up my Uncle Roscoe. And I'm like, I'll whoop you if I want to. I got a thing from Facebook that temporarily suspended me for 48 hours due to violence on the internet. I was like, oh, okay. I'm like, so I texted him and said, you're a little punk, man. You get kicked off Facebook for 48 hours. But those tools are meant to protect us.
It's been young internet right there.
Oh, it was
nowadays. It's a free for all for everyone.
Yeah, it was. It was a little bit safer. It felt like, but the other. So don't stay silent, right? Report it to your parents. Report it to law enforcement. And the problem is a lot of local law enforcement, like in Asia's case, they didn't know what to do because it was so new and so young in the process. But now people are getting more aware. Report it to the FBI because a lot of times it's cross-border. Just don't quit, right? Report to protect. Now, I'm not going to report everybody that scams me that I get scam emails and text messages from. But if I find out one of you guys were a victim or Sabrina was a victim or, a friend, I'd help them find all the proper phone numbers. So, and we'll put that in on when we launch this, we'll put it in our blog as well as in our social media of how to reach out to them. The next step is preserve evidence. And we kind of touched on this briefly. What does that mean?
So, like, if someone did give or want explicit content and did so by either giving you some or you can't even do it, delete it all. Because then they're like, well, it never said that you sent them anything. So we have no proof that this happened. Or you deleted their app pleadings for it. So we have no way of proving that they did ask.
Gene, great. Just like you're a crime scene investigator. Keep the evidence, keep the fingerprints, keep the data, keep the details, and then pass it on to the appropriate. Now, this is one for all of us, and I have it under parents, but it really could be anybody. Fostering open communication and don't shame. Gene, you touched on this. We started early when you guys were younger. We'd talk about inappropriate touching. No means no. Come talk to us, so we educated you early. It led to a funny ski story that we can share at some point in time, but probably not on about getting to use a proper name for his body parts. And got me razzed a little bit from other skiers. But it's okay. I'd rather him say that than other words for it. Parents, I'd ask you to talk to your kids about this one. If you're listening to it, if you're not comfortable, just share the episode with them. It's season 7, episode 3. It's as easy as dropping them a link from Spotify, from whatever podcast player you're listening at, but just share it with them. Apple, share any of that. So first educate them, then create a safe space, right? Sometimes it feels awkward, but kids have to be able to come up and ask you questions about their body and questions about what they're seeing and what they're hearing, so that they feel like they have a safe platform to talk to you as a parent. And one of the things, I had a good friend of mine just the other day say, "Oh, I told that guy that if he ever hurt my daughter, and I made sure she heard me, that I'd kill him." I'm like, I don't know that that's a safe space, because then as a child, I'd be afraid to tell my parent something because I don't want my dad in jail or, arrested. So I've tried to be very careful with you guys to say, hey, here's a safe space. You can tell me whatever you need to tell me, and nobody's going to get killed, but the proper authorities will get involved.
And I like how you pointed out that it's not just for the parents. It's also for the siblings, the friends, the neighbors of these people. Because you may be the person that they turn to if they're not comfortable, if they didn't have that fostered safe place either at home or with somebody else. You're able to foster that open communication and know that it's something that you're aware of and that you're not going to shame them for it. And because if you just shame the victim for it, it's going to make the problem worse. But if it's open, it's positive, and that fosters growth, then that person's going to overcome it that much easier.
Love it. Yeah, avoid that victim blaming, right? It's hard sometimes to not blame the victim because you're like, how did you not see that as a scam on that package coming from London? And but mine's never a blame. Mine's like, how do we still solve the problem, right? It wasn't your fault. People are doing it. So how do we step back from that, right? And then involve the people you need to. So Gene, thank you for talking about that. Avoid victim blaming. We have a couple episodes, one about, shame versus guilt, and it's okay to feel some guilt, but you shouldn't feel the shame. We talked a little bit earlier this season. We talked earlier about the power of words and positive self-affirmation and negative self-affirmation. So be careful to avoid that.
One thing, not necessarily tips like you said, but one thing I've been thinking about a lot of the episode is to be that friend to people. I know that we've touched about it, and like Gene, you've talked a lot about it too, but I really love deep conversations with my friends, and so you want to make sure that you're always open to that, and you always have at least like maybe somebody you can turn to and somebody that you can talk to about anything, and you want to make sure to also be that person to everybody around you, just in case,
Thank you.
I'd say if you are an individual that needs to deal with this, I think the biggest thing you can do is talk about it. Don't let it sit. Uncomfortable conversations had quickly is good versus the just sitting in that uncomfort. So don't be afraid to move forward quickly with the solutions. Contact, parents, guardian, trusted adults, law enforcement. Just talk about it. And then just be wary, rightfully cautious, but not scared of your own shadow.
And it's never too early or too late to leave a conversation that you feel uncomfortable with. Don't be afraid to trust what you are feeling and be able to push away from the things that don't feel quite right, that may seem sketchy. Be aware of the surroundings. It's something that's going to be there, and I don't think it's going to go away in a week. So we're going to have to constantly be on guard with it, but realize that when we're safe with it, as we share these safeguards with each other, that it doesn't need to be as a big of an issue in our lives.
And where can the listener go to?
Of course. Thank you, Gene. I just want to make sure that all the listeners feel safe with us as well. So if you have any tips, anything that you'd like to add to this conversation, feel free. Our Facebook page, like we had talked about before, or direct message us on any of the social media platforms. We would love to have a chat and help you feel safe. So thank you so much.
Bye now.
Just as we go on, it'd be great if every one of the Adulting Decrypted members could give somebody a safeguard that they use or an idea of something they got from this episode, and then we'll do the call to action. And I liked how you did it last time, Gideon, where you just said, hey, reach out to us at Adulting #.
Did you want me to do it?
Yeah, you can do it when we're done. So, listener, the challenge is keep yourself safe out there. Last bits of advice. Just advice about sex.
Well, I've got some
sextortion.
advice. I don't actually. I don't have any advice. Mom looks intrigued.
So yeah, so if you could give them some advice on sextortion and how to stay safe online, just give everybody one thing they could try to do, just kind of a call to action, and then ask them for their tips to give us.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Adulting Decrypted. We really enjoyed having this week's conversation, and we hope you did as well.
If you ever want to comment on the topics, you can send us a message to our website, adultingdecrypted.com, our email, adultingdecrypted@gmail.com, or through our Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn accounts at adultingdecrypted.
If you have any topics for the show that you would like us to talk about, or if you are a parent and want us to talk about something your kid should know, send us a message on any of the accounts mentioned. If you would like to be a guest or have an idea for someone you think we should have on our show, feel free to send us an email detailing your thoughts to adultingdecrypted@gmail.com. Adulting is teamwork.
We have merch. If you want to show off your Adulting Decrypted pride, check out our website, adultingdecrypted.com, or our partner website with shop.spreadshirt.com/adulting-decrypted.
Lastly, if you enjoyed the show, please consider supporting us on our Patreon at Adulting Decrypted. Along with the benefits that come with our Patreon, and trust us, there are some pretty good ones in there, you will not only be helping us continue in the effort to make great content, but you will be part of a community of individuals all trying their best to adult.
We appreciate you listening, enjoying, and leaving your positive reviews. Now, the special song from Gene and Gideon.